I'm not going to be at my best if my family isn't taken care of first. The biggest mistake I see is that entrepreneurs will use the family as the excuse to spend more time away from the family. The place I should be most purposeful with my leadership is probably first with myself. If I lead myself really well, then I can probably lead my family well. And if I can lead my family well, then I've earned the right to probably go out in the world and lead a business. And I think some people just have that backwards. We do all these structures, goal setting, values, and all these things for the different teams we're on. And then we come home and it's like leadership by default. I think inspiring people to really lean into their families also is really, in my opinion, the only way we fix this broken world that we're a part of right now.
Like if you look at setting the example for your children with what they eat, how do you look at that differently for setting the example on wealth? Because it's really no different, right? The way you lead with your money, the way you lead with your wealth is the same way your kids are going to observe you eating. So how do you bring your kids on the journey with wealth?
No, with wealth, it's like, with Tyler, it's been, and Ember too, they have like a stockpile account. And they got to make some picks with some money that Grandpa gave them to like play in the stock market, and they've done really well. Like Ember better than Tyler, because she picked like Amazon and Tesla, and Tyler kind of picked like, Nike and like things that he thought were cool. And it's just funny watching how they've both seen that happen. And then we also do this thing in the home where like there's some accountability to like adding up their stars that they can get in the house by doing chores and other stuff. And then they add those up, and then they're able to exchange the stars one for $1. So there's this like, if you fill out the form and you do your chores every day, you get paid. But if you don't get paid. And then when they do get that money in, it's like, how much goes to save, how much goes to spend, how much goes to invest, and then is there a charity component too? And so we tried to, early on we were doing the buckets, and they very clearly in their bank accounts had like 3 separate buckets. So just doing little things like that to teach them, like, also they have to negotiate the value of everything on that star chart. So they're learning like how to negotiate for their value and what they're worth. And so and then like having to fill out a form every day is accountability, like, and habits building. So yeah, it's been fun to watch them. But, with Tyler, for instance, for the car, I was like, well, even though my parents gave me a car, I didn't grow up in the same environment that they're growing up in, where they're getting to ride on a private jet. They have multiple houses. So we wanted to make sure, and he's already got, my dad left them a little bit of money that can be used for different things. So we were like, let's make him earn part of the car still. So he's going to pay a third, we're going to pay a third, and then Grandpa's trust will pay a third. So just showing him like, you're not just going to get it free. And then for the gas, he pays his own gas, we pay for maintenance, and then we split insurance. So, and that we let him kind of negotiate that. He was very smart to be like, I think you should pay maintenance.
It was very smart because it was your car.
Smart. Yeah, it's like an old car. Yeah. And if something goes wrong, it could be $3,000.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, and then how does that tie back into the core values? Because I know one of the things that you and your family spend a lot of time on is talking about your values, your core values. They're plastered around your guys' house. You guys have spent a ton of time creating those. And it wasn't like that always, right? Yeah. This has been a journey you've been on. How did you start having that conversation with your kids and your wife about core values and what's going to matter to you? May not matter as much to them, but it's still your core value, and they're going to have their own core values.
Yeah. Well, we kind of did it like the standard way that everyone does it at first, where we kind of like, Lindsay and I went through a big list of words, and we picked our individuals, and then we said, well, what are our shared core values? And we kind of like guessed a little bit as to what those were. And we just found like the kids didn't fully resonate with that, because it's just words on a paper. And honestly, like, you can define words in so many different ways. Like what integrity or commitment mean to one person might not be the exact same definition to others. So once I went through like exchange training and learned how to facilitate core values for a team, I realized like, oh, what works for a team or a company would also work for a family.
Yeah.
And the process for that is to really study the stories of the family of when they've been at their best. So when we're at our events, what we do is we'll have families, everyone in the family writes down all of their favorite moments that they've had as a family, when they felt the most loved, the most connected, the most supported, and even like when they've overcome adversity or had challenges come up. So it's when they're at their best, but it could be how they handled one of the worst times they've been through. And then we even have them study like generational stories, because there could be some cautionary tales of what not to do, as well as like some really valid lessons on what we value, not just in our current family at this generation, but previous generations, and trying to honor them. And after they sit around sharing these stories for 20, 30 minutes, they're writing down any words that they hear that live inside those stories. And that's how we have them then theme out those different words into categories. So they might get like strong, courage, they're like similar words. And then what we'll do is have them create a title for that area and then a description of what that core value actually means to them. But the beauty of that process is that it's co-created with the whole family, all of them expressing what they think is valuable in the family. And there's a little bit of like creative tension and give and take that has to happen in that process. But, authorship is ownership, as they say. And like, I think often as leaders of families or even businesses, we sometimes come down from the mountaintop with the tablets and we're like, this is our core values. And people are like, those are not my core values.
Right.
Like, I didn't help create this. So it's an act of sort of like bottom up leadership, or even all leading together at the same time.
So do you guys have like family meetings where you discuss these things, or like what kind of a cadence have you and Lindsay created inside of your family to have these discussions?
Yeah. So we have usually a weekly family meeting. We're not perfect. If we hit it like 75% of the time, then we're on point. Good. And we will have a section of the meeting that's dedicated to calling each other up and saying, oh, I saw Ember really living this value today, and she was being a resilient warrior. Or Lindsay was really pushing outside her comfort zone. She's a transformation seeker this week. And so we'll call them up and point out like, hey, I saw you living the values. And talk about them.
You start with that calling up process. Is that how you start the meeting?
The meeting starts actually with gratitude. So we'll single out each member of the family, and everyone says why they're grateful for them. And then they'll say, here's why I'm grateful for myself.
Wow.
And then we go to the next family member. So we call it kind of like a gratitude shower. You're just getting it. And then you got to say, I'm grateful for this. I'm proud of myself for this. And then after we've kind of done some gratitude, then we'll actually go, just like we made that list to make the core values of all of our best moments, we'll actually list out what were our best moments as a family since our last meeting. Oh, we played that game night and it was fun. We went to that movie. That was really cool. We got to, mom and dad went out to dinner with, friends. And so we'll like, be mining for more stories and more things that went well, because it's, you're trying to get them to understand we're looking for the times when we've been at our best so we can celebrate like, hey, look at this last week. We had a really powerful week. And then it's after that high point moments that we say, okay, now where have you seen each other living out the values? And sometimes the values come out during the gratitude and the high point naturally. And so it's oftentimes not even necessary to specifically then go into the core values. But we'll oftentimes read one too and be like, what does that mean to you? How have you lived in that way recently, to try to like single out one or two every once in a while, just to make sure we're revisiting it. And then they change over time. So that's the other thing we're realizing is like one of ours is being a present visionary, which is like more my value than it is theirs.
Right.
And I can see that every time it comes up, I'm more excited about whatever that part holds than any of them. So we've just decided like, let's just cut that one out.
Yeah.
And so we started with 4, got up to 7, now we're down to 6.
And you just let it be flexible.
Let it be flexible and change and move with time. And then, then that anytime we make updates, then we go back into like what we're building right now, a family constitution. So like wherever it's at when I leave this planet, then they can build on it from there or do what they want, as long as they keep updating the Constitution and keep it attached in some way to like the legacy that we're leaving.
Where did you guys get this idea of a family constitution? I know you didn't create it, right? They've been around, but what sparked you to want a McCarthy family constitution?
Well, I think the main thing was, you have estate planning with all these complicated documents that nobody understands that really mean nothing. And oftentimes there's not any other supplementary materials that explain who is the family, how did they create wealth, what did they value, how do they want their money to be used in the future, and then tying that back to the core values. There really is a missing link in that. And I think, the beautiful part about the core values exercise is it gives the family an identity to belong to. And so that's what we're really after, is how do we, in the Constitution, form this like identity, just like as you're an American and we have a Constitution and we know kind of what we stand for, what the rules are, what we do and don't do. It's all outlined in there. So like even in a Constitution might be like, and you would put this in the hard structure documents too. I got this off the legacy call, but some people will put in there, if you sue any other family member ever, you're automatically out of the will
plan, yeah,
the estate plan, because then they're never going to fight over it, because the first one that fights is out. So like little things like that, because you also have to define, like from a communication standpoint, how do we deal with conflict in this family? Yeah. Like how do we actually appreciate each other? How do we celebrate our values? And then also like within that too is, what are all the rhythms and traditions and rituals that make your family unique? Like we have a set of things we do on certain holidays, on birthdays, we have a ritual that we do for each kid. But every family has these. And I think what they fail to do is take the time to like really lay it out and say, here's who we are. And when you do that, being a part of that identity of being a McCarthy it's clear. Yeah. And you understand, like, we give back in this family. We're not going to just hoard things to ourselves. Like right. Generosity is something that got us to where we are. So we're going to keep feeding into that and make sure that our planning represents the spirit of generosity that got us here.
The way you get to the life you desire is by getting in rooms you don't think you deserve to be into. And this is an opportunity for you to get into a room that most oftentimes in the year you will not have the ability to get into. The Austin Entrepreneurial Summit, powered by Gobundance, is the only time we open the doors of Gobundance to the public. This event is packed with some powerful speakers and incredible people from the Gobundance community that will pour into you on your journey of success and help you achieve the life you desire. Service is the Trojan horse to knowledge, and if you want the opportunity to take your life to the next level, do yourself a service and sign up for this event. See you in Austin in May. You've done it all. You've built the business. You've made the money. You conquered the grind. You're the lone wolf, and yeah, that got you here. But let's be real, it won't take you to the next level. The truth, most successful people don't hunt alone. They join a tribe, a network of elite entrepreneurs, investors, or leaders who challenge them, push them, and hold them accountable to their biggest goals. Gobundance is that tribe. Extreme accountability, real wealth building, life-changing adventure, and a brotherhood who refuses to let each other play small. So here's the challenge. Stay the lone wolf or run with the pack. The right tribe changes everything. Find a link in the description. Apply today. This episode is brought to you by Loletta Birnbaum, LLC, doing business justice. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, real estate investor, or a combination of each, you know how critical it is to have trusted legal advisors on your team. Loletta Birnbaum has built a stellar reputation providing exceptional legal services that make a difference. As a national business law firm, Loletta Birnbaum provides a wide variety of legal services, including general corporate, contract negotiations, mergers and acquisitions, succession planning, intellectual property, commercial litigation, shareholder disputes, real estate, and employment. Whether you're navigating a complex business deal, resolving disputes, or protecting your brand, their team delivers practical, results-driven legal solutions tailored to your goals. For inquiries, Gobundance members should email Loletta Birnbaum at gobundance@loletta.com. That's LAULETTA.com. You can also visit their website at www.lauletta.com to learn more about how they can do your business justice. What's slowing your business down? Is it endless emails, scheduling headaches, repetitive tasks that steal your time? My Outdesk has your solution. Their experienced global virtual assistants handle the busy work so you can focus on strategy, growth, and whatever matters to you most. From administrative support to marketing and customer service, they've got you covered at a fraction of the cost of hiring in-house. Scale smarter, save bigger, get the support you need today at My Outdesk. So you went through, loss, which many of us are going to have to deal with in our life. Unfortunately, you lost your father, and whether it was good or bad, you got to spend a lot of time with him, knowing that the end was coming. What didn't he have in place that you wish he would have, and how are you putting those things in place for your family?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things with the trust that he left where, like, it can only benefit his direct descendants. Which is counter to productive to what I'm trying to do, where I actually want my nephews and nieces that are on the other side of the family that aren't his direct descendants, and even some of my cousins' kids that are all, let's call it generation 3. If my dad's generation 1, I'm generation 2, generation 3. So yeah, I think he wanted to, kind of play it tight the way that he would. And mine's a little looser. So I'm going to probably do some decanting of his trust into another one, which will make it go from like valid for 340 years to 320.
Yeah.
But it'll make it so that I can create this sort of family bank structure that any of the people that choose to participate on Generation 3 will have the ability to maybe start a business if it's a sound idea and the board passes it, or borrow money for a car or a house or whatever. And then there's a duty that they also have to agree to in exchange for that, which is to help the foundation decide where we would donate the money. So like when we go to Nepal for Thanksgiving, I'm bringing my wife's brother and his wife, and then her brother and his wife, and their 4 kids. And that's the start of our G3, like learning what it is to like be a philanthropist, go serve in another country, people that could never repay you, and then also to experience that as a family and then see the joy in it. Like that's things that my dad didn't have the time or even like ideas around to create that. His was more like, I mean, it took me probably 5 years to convince him to even move anything to a trust. It was like, wait, I worked my whole life to own this and control it, and now you want me to give up control and ownership.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because that's the only way it survives.
Yes.
If he wouldn't have put that planning in place, he dies, then we have to sell to make some tax payments, assets that are producing income, and it just depletes faster the trust. And I'll share one other thing with Generation 3 is then to also get life insurance on every single member of G3 would be another requirement that I would do. But those are things that I can still fix. I'm just happy that my dad listened eventually, trusted me. I mean, he called me like 6 times, like, I'm about to sign this document. Are you sure you're not going to screw me over, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, Dad, like whatever you say goes until your last breath, and then I'm in charge, but you have to trust me this is the right thing. And then 6 months would go by and he didn't sign anything. And then he'd call me, I'm about to sign this. Should I do it? Are you sure? And eventually he did. I think the blessing in that is that because I was so adamant about getting that planning done, when he did get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and he only had 8 months to live, what was happening with his estate or getting planning in place wasn't something we had to deal with.
Right.
So it was really a beautiful thing. And there was a sense of like, wow, my son made it so that this is an easier exit. There's no easy exit, but it was easier on him to know like everything was handled.
So as he's going, or as he's passing, obviously you got to learn a lot of the stories and hear and spend a lot of time. Is there anything you're doing proactively to capture your stories and share those back with your children or your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren?
Good question. Yeah. I'm more focused on capturing the stories of the existing grandparents than I am my own story right now, just because I've got a time limit on that.
Yeah.
In fact, our brother-in-law's and sister-in-law's parent just passed away yesterday.
Oh, wow.
He was fighting lung cancer, got a transplant, and it didn't take. And he eventually made the decision that he was done. He had
Yeah.
tried as much as he could. And so that stuff like becomes real in those moments.
Yeah. So you're trying to capture those stories.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
your ruler's a little longer.
Yeah, I think I've got time
Yeah, you've
for
got
mine.
time.
And so we actually just set up a thing, I forget the name of it, but it'll email my wife's mom a question every week, and she's going to write out the answer and send it to me. So after a year, we'll have all of her stories.
And then will you put it in a book? Will you put it in the family constitution? What
Yeah, I mean, some of them we will for sure. Like, we'll have in the family constitution like a full family tree. So like my dad traced back at least 6, 7 generations on the McCarthy side and my mom's side. We're now adding in Lindsay's family to that as well. And so, yeah, we'll have as much history and who was where and what dates things happened as we can so that future generations can learn from it, understand it. And, eventually I think my kids might get more and more curious about that. I know I wasn't that, into it, but then as you get older, it starts to mean more.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting for me is like our kids right now, my kids specifically, they just want to play. I mean, and that's what kids are supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
But we're in this complicated situation right now where we're navigating education. And I know you've been in that situation before, right? We're all very entrepreneurial by nature. And so we think like, oh, looking back, I wish I was never in a school structure. I would have done so much better in an entrepreneurial environment. And you've gotten to see both and your children in both. From your perspective, education, what is right, if you will, and how would you do things if you could do them over?
Man, it's an interesting thing because it keeps changing. So it's like at first we're like, it's kindergarten. Let's just send Tyler to public kindergarten school. Well, he was bored out of his mind, finishing assignments like, at the fraction of what it was taking other students, and he would literally come home every day and be like, I'm so bored. Like, so you could tell in that environment, he wasn't being challenged and wasn't being fed into like curiosity. Like the thing you really want is them to be able to explore their curiosity. So then we kind of went into homeschool with like a supplemental unschooling situation where 3 days a week he would go to this campus. He could learn whatever he wanted. There was no grades, no rules. And then we were supplementing his education. And Ember was following in those same footsteps. And then when we moved to Austin, it was specifically to go to Acton Academy for both children. And Tyler came, and it's been amazing from, like literally 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. He was in Acton, and he loved it. And then this year he came to us, and he's like, I'm done with Acton. He's like, it's just not doing it for me anymore because Acton is a very entrepreneurial school where the kids basically run the school, and the kids aren't doing that great of a job running the school because they're kids.
Right, shocker, yeah.
And they're not holding each other accountable because who wants to be the one that's on everybody?
Right.
You're not going to be then liked in the school. So he recognized that that's not going to serve him in the long run and decided to apply to the school that David's daughter goes to. And so we're in the process of going, to the complete opposite. Totally scheduled out, full curriculum, homework, the whole 9 yards. But he's like, I want this now, and he wants a bigger community. Ember couldn't do Acton because she was dyslexic, so we immediately had to send her to a school specifically for kids with dyslexia, and she's thrived there, and there's way more structure there. So I think it's a little bit of a like assessing what your kid needs in the moment and not getting too locked into one system being the end all to be all, because kids have different needs and they're going to eventually tell you what they want. And so I think Tyler will both respect the structure and the flexibility, having experienced like both sides of it. And same with Ember. I think she'll be able to value that as well.
And do you think like that accountability system you built with the stars, like you've built a household that's very accountable. Do you think that was what caused him some conflict at Acton where he was like, this isn't an accountable environment and I'm used to accountable environments, I'm an accountable person? Or do you think it was something else?
I think he is an accountable person. And so, yeah, I think it was no longer a value match for him. If he's not being pushed, then he's like, what's the point? Why am I here? So I think it had something to do with it. And, to be fair, there's been periods of times where we weren't very accountable. So like we kind of got away as my dad was passing. Yeah. We kind of let a lot of that stuff slip. And so as we've gone back to try to implement some of it, we're like, oh man, we should have kept this going no matter what. Yeah. So there is an amount of like, it's harder to reinstill or restart a system sometimes than if you just keep it rolling. Yeah. And that's kind of like what we learned during that time.
And how do you and Lindsay work together on all this? Because like I know Lindsay, she's an amazing, awesome human, but she's not quite as driven as you are, like wired tight as you are. Like you're very, we're going to get stuff done. We're going to go. And she's not, I'm sure she is that to a certain degree, but she's much more like kind of chill and just go with the flow. So how do you balance that dynamic and bring her along on your journey?
I think we both have to respect that, while I'm ready to charge the hill at any time, there's still value in like slowing down and assessing where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So early on in our relationship, I just thought she was there to shoot all my ideas down. Like I thought that was her number one role as a wife. And I got so annoyed by it. I'd be like, I'm so good at ideas and you hate all of them. But what I realized is like, more ideas for her was like more work, and when she's sort of more of the implementer, but I'm more of the idea person, there's like a healthy tension there that has grown healthier over time by us just understanding like there's so much value in approaching it the way she does. Whereas when I was younger, I thought like, no, I've got the right way to do this. Yeah. Like I know what I'm doing. We got to just go. And while I may have been right some of the time, there's definitely times when she's like, I told you not to do that, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
So it sounds like just through trial and error, you guys have figured out a system that works for you guys.
Yeah. And some of it is also tactical. Like we got to get our date night in. If I plan it and put it together and she doesn't have to think about it, my week is a lot smoother and she feels like appreciated on that date night. And then we've recently implemented an alignment meeting where before the family meeting, her and I sit down and talk about what we want, add any other agenda items to that family meeting that we want to discuss with the kids, and we get in alignment. And that's been huge. And when we don't do that, then it's much harder to be working together because we'll tend to like bifurcate into our strength zones and then not communicate with one another. But when we're communicating, there's a deep understanding that luckily through a lot of therapy and coaches and just work together, like we're able to really work through differences. Like what used to take sometimes weeks can be completed in a day if there's tension. We're much more equipped to like work through those challenges and then respect the other person.
Yeah, what I think I respect most about watching you guys, from the sideline is both of you are on your own healing journey, right? Your own empowerment journey. And one of the things that you've done a lot of is breath work. And you've gotten like really into that inner trauma and dealing with all of that stuff. Can you walk me through a little bit of what that journey has looked like for you and what it's done for you and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the interesting things is that, I love my dad. We had an incredible relationship. We built an awesome business together. He told me that he was proud of me at some point. And at the same time, he had a hard time connecting with me. And his dad had a hard time connecting with him. And then my grandfather's father passed away when he was 5. So you can see this pattern started where it was nobody's fault. And my grandfather had to grow up without a dad. So, of course, he didn't know how to connect with his son. So I think there's probably in every family some story of trauma like that that's passed down. And my work in this lifetime has been to identify what is that in our family. And that's the thing. It's connection to my kids. And I noticed, which was really uncomfortable, me having challenges connecting with my kids. Like it didn't feel comfortable to play with them and do the things with them that my wife was. And I really had to like look in the mirror and be like, what is that all about? And, I struggled with it for many, many years and even just tried to pretend like it wasn't a thing. And then it just bubbled up enough over time where I'm like, I've got to work through this, and it's not about working on it out there. It's all about working on it in here. And that's been the journey. And, I'm still on it, but breath work is a way to, access those parts of you that are in pain or storing trauma, and to try to acknowledge them and feel them. And when you're feeling them, you're able to release them. And I think oftentimes what we do is we get really good at not feeling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We block out, like, I didn't feel connected to my dad. And so then we don't process that sadness or the trauma that's there, that then makes it harder for me to connect with my children. So I think you can see in that, like, why legacy and like bringing my kids along on the Gobundance journey and having these type of family structures in place, it's all in an attempt to make sure I write for all of my ancestors this trauma that's been passing down. So I like to imagine, like, my great grandfather that passed away young, who probably didn't have any choice in it. I'm sure he didn't want to die. Right. Is like, hey, I'm doing this for you, and for me, and for my children and their children. And I think that's the real work of most entrepreneurs. They just maybe haven't realized it yet, because oftentimes when you achieve massive success, the thing that's driving you, that you think is driving you, like, I'm going to get happy if I close this big deal, or everyone will be proud of me when I get there, is like, when you get there and you get the thing and it doesn't provide the feeling that you think it should, then it's devastating. And we saw this in a champions chat recently with the guy who closed the biggest deal. And it's amazing the response to that comment of everybody being like, oh yeah, when I hit my goal, I feel like shit too. Yeah. It's like, well, if that's the case, then there's inner work to do still, so that you can actually feel it. And what I'm working on right now specifically is, I recently realized through some deep therapy that I've not really ever just done what would make me proud of myself. Like, first I was building the real estate company so my dad would be proud of me and I could make others proud of me and my family. And often the attempt of, being the CEO of Gobundance and helping to build that early on was sort of me being like, I need to prove to everyone that my business success isn't all because of my dad. Right. So I'm seeking all of this external validation. And then I had this realization, like, so when are you going to just do what makes you proud? And so that's sort of this year's like mantra for me, is like, as long as I'm proud of myself, then everything's all good. And I can totally control that by my actions.
What do you think that is for you? Like, what do you think will make you proud?
What I've realized is it's doing hard things that I don't want to do. It's the cold plunges and the workouts and the diets, and taking breaks from alcohol, and doing all the things that are hard, so that I'm like, I feel great because I did the things that weren't just going to be easy, which is kind of counterintuitive, because it's like, I built this massive business and all, this success so I could do like whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. And then I realized that when I was sitting in that for like the last 4 or 5 years, and COVID and my dad dying, it's like, it wasn't very fun. I wasn't fulfilled because I wasn't chasing something that was stretching me and challenging me. And I think that's the key, is like, do you have a vision that's so big that it's a little scary? Yeah. Because if not, like, you're missing an energy in your life, which is really powerful. That I can do this and I'm going to chase down that vision is a really powerful energy, and it makes you feel really proud of who you are when you do that.
How do you focus on your kids being proud of themselves? I mean, I know you guys are lifting each other up and you're doing the gratitude thing, but this is obviously something I think many people struggle with. If you asked me, what are you proud of? I would tell you everything I'm not proud of and everything I could improve, but I couldn't tell you many things I am proud of. Yeah. And then I watch us like parent, and we have this same tendency to say, don't do that, go do this, don't do that, go do this. And, trying to find that like inner pride, I think, is super powerful. So how do we instill that in our children?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And luckily I just got the answer yesterday. So over the weekend, actually, just spending time with family, I was sharing this journey, and and my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, what we do in our house is we never say I'm proud of you. We say you should be proud of yourself."
Oh,
And so just that subtle shift in language. And then I thought back and I'm like, "Oh, I actually had just done that when we went to the interview at the school with my son and we got out of there. I actually, not even knowing what I was doing, I was like, Tyler, you should feel so proud of yourself right now for how you answered those questions. Like you killed it." And I just gave him a high five. So I think oftentimes it's like as simple as just communicating it in the right way, and then, making sure that they understand that that's really what matters, is if they're proud of themselves or not. And to explain to them, like I've often said to them, like, "Hey, I'm very proud of you and I love you, but it's really about how you feel about yourself.
yeah.
So make sure you're focusing on making yourself proud, not just mom and dad."
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, and even like then I'm sure you see moments where Ty and Ember are saying it to each other, like you should be proud of yourself, and they're celebrating each other. Like that's when you know you've done what you need to do as a parent.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful when they're not fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My wife is an only child, and so when our kids are going at it like siblings do, she's like mortified. She's like, "What are they doing? They're gonna kill each other." I'm like, "No, this is just what brothers and sisters do. Like Bodhi's gonna bite her, she's gonna pull his hair. Like it's okay. They'll get through this."
Yeah.
But then there are these beautiful moments. Like the other night, we were sitting in my son's room, and my daughter wanted to help put him down, and I was like, "Okay, good night. I love you guys." And my daughter was laying on the floor. He was in his bed. And Bodhi goes, "I love you, Rylan." And she's like, "I love you too, bud." And I was just like, okay, I can die. Like I could
Yeah.
die a happy man, right?
That's
Like there's my
beautiful.
5-year-old telling her 3-year-old brother, "I love you too, bud." Like she's this super senior person over him, like, helping lead him. But now they want to sleep in the same room. So now tonight we're like taking apart his bed and putting his bed in her room because they want to sleep in the same room. And I know that that's only a moment in time. There's going to be the teenage years where she's like, "Bodhi, get the hell out of my room." But for now, we're just embracing it and
Yeah.
enjoying it because that's what life's about.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that story.
So most people look at GoBundance, this incredible community that you and I get to be a part of, and they say, "Oh, it's a bunch of rich white guys." That's just the narrative that people have about it.
Yeah.
But when people get behind the curtain, they see all these other incredible things that are going on inside of this community. Things that you have spearheaded and stood up when you were CEO of the organization, as a part of your ownership in the organization, things like Fambundance, things like Go Wives. What sparked you to really kick these initiatives off, and why are they so important to you?
Man, and maybe you can relate to this, but when I saw the opportunity to make a difference as a leader of GoBundance, it was like this community and the three amigos, David, Pat, and Tim, have done so much to help me in my life. It would be crazy of me to not double down and make sure that this is here to support others in the same way. And so I make the decision and, make the proposal. And then they're like, "Great, you're CEO." And I'm like, "Oh shit." And I realized like I had just fought for a very long time to get more freedom out of my real estate company. And the moment I got it, I turned around and gave it up for something. And it was probably chasing that external validation I talked about earlier. But I think I think what was important for me to realize was that, okay, I've agreed to do this. I know this is where my heart is. And at the time, my dad had launched a brewery and he was trying to pull me into the brewery business. And I was down there, every couple weeks helping him out. And at some point, I just realized, like, do I want to build a brand and a company that's going to help people go have a good time and get drunk and maybe lose parts of their health? Or do I want to build something that's incredible, that's enriching to people? And it was clear that's the direction I wanted to go. And it was a tough conversation with my dad. And he was like, "That GoBundance stuff will never do anything. You're crazy." And, at the same time, I'm like, okay, so if we're going to go into a situation where my dad wants me to create this brewery, but I want to do GoBundance, and now I'm doing this fully, if I can't bring my family along for the journey, it's not going to be worth it for me because I can't risk further disconnection between me and my family. So it was a little bit self-serving early on, as like, if I'm going to be the CEO, like we need to have programs that serve my family and my wife needs to be involved in this. And then as that evolved, it was quite clear to me that there was a secret sauce in that, of like, if you engage the whole entire family, in a community, the difference that that makes in their experience is really profound, because oftentimes we go to these events as entrepreneurs and we come back and we're like, I learned this and I learned that and we need to do this, and they're just like spewing all over the family. Or maybe even potentially worse on some level is they come back and say nothing about it. So it's like this secret thing that they're a part of that they don't, there's a disconnect because they don't even know what it is. I think if we can bridge the gap and bring the family along for the journey, then not only are we making generational impact, and I'm very proud of that, but we're also like getting people that are now lifetime members. Like if their kids are now part of the community and they're being enriched by it, and their wives have new best friends and they're growing because of it, well, now it's like, hey, we're delivering what we promised, transformation. And what I know for sure in all of my years of Gobundance is that if somebody invests in our membership and leans in fully, their life will completely change in incredible ways. Like we've seen guys lose hundreds of pounds, get their relationship back with their wife, rekindle connections with kids, get back to having fun and chasing a goal that they really are excited about. Like those things are incredible, and I just couldn't see a pathway through without the family being involved in that. And I'm really grateful to you, Matt, for your leadership, because fam abundance wasn't always the favorite thing of past CEOs, or it wasn't the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you've really allowed the space for me to come back in as a more healed version of myself, a more committed version of myself, and then rekindle and reinvigorate this vision for fam abundance. And now it feels like, for the first time ever, as of our call on Monday, like it's really a part of this for good now. Like we're integrating it and it's a thing.
Yeah, I think people have this notion of I have to focus on business or I have to focus on family. And if I focus on family, that's okay, but then I can't have as much success in the business world.
Yeah.
From your experience, do you think that focusing so much on your family allowed you to achieve more, or do you think it held you back?
Definitely more. I mean, because you're supported it now in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's hard to put a measure on the support. Like, is it easier to do something when everyone in your family is cheering you on and encouraging you, or they're upset because you're leaving again and you have this constant energy drain? And also I'm not going to be at my best if my family isn't taken care of first. If they're not the priority, like there's not going to be enough of me left over to give anything to business at the highest level. And I think the biggest mistake I see is that entrepreneurs will use the family as the excuse to spend more time away from the family. Yeah. Like, my family needs this. I'm doing it for them. I'm leaving all the time, building these businesses all for them. That may be true to an extent, but at some point in net worth and success, you're no longer doing it for them. You're doing it because you want to do it. So I think we've got to get clear on, who are you really doing this for? Is it your family or for yourself? If you're going to say, hey, it's for me and this is what I want to do and it's what makes me feel proud, then maybe that's something you need to choose, and you can navigate any landmines or downsides to that. But if not, I think you have to lean in and be like, this is what's important to me, and I'm going to make sure this is prioritized no matter what.
Yeah, I remember at one of our events, we had Tim Grover speak, and Tim was the guy that worked very closely with Michael Jordan and Kobe and was their trainer. And he told a story from stage about how when he was going on a trip one time, his daughter didn't want him to go, like sat herself on his suitcase and said, you're not going. And he's like, this is how I provide for the family. Like, I'm going. I have to do this so you can go get a toy, so you can go do all of this stuff. And I just remember the backlash from the membership going like, we've been in that position too where we've used that language, and that's such bullshit. It's not even funny, right? And like, I've catch myself sometimes telling my daughter, like, I have to go to work because of this for you, but it's not for her. Like, it's for me. And so now I've changed the language that I've used with my daughter, with my son, with my wife, and changed how I communicate. And even so much so that I brought him to an event last year, the first one I've ever brought them to, and we went to do the sound check, and the guys were setting up the stage, and my daughter, who was 4 at the time, pulls me aside and says, Dad, like, why are they setting up the stage? I'm like, well, that's what they're doing. And she's like, but I thought you set up stages. I was like, no, 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 no. Like, if I set up the stage, it's going to break. It's going to fall. We're going to have a mess. But a lot of times we don't let our kids actually see what we do. We tell them, like, I do calls, I do this, but they don't understand it until they see it. So how have you brought your children along on the journey to show them what you're doing, not just tell them what you're doing?
Well, I mean, the biggest example, especially recently, would be Tyler being part of the Go crew. Yeah. So, like, I remember last year in Vermont, you know, he's not the most like emotional kid. He's got a lot of Lindsay and my dad in him, where he's very stoic.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating because right after like the first break on the first night, and he was in that environment, and there was a guy talking about AI, and all these people are coming up to him like, "You're Mike McCarthy's son? Oh, hi, I'm so and so." And at some point during that, I'm just standing there watching the speaker, and all of a sudden Tyler comes up and puts his arm around me. Like that just doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
And I looked, and he was just smiling at me, like with this, like, this is my dad type of, and he could see what I was now doing. He finally got like, oh, it's not just these family things you've been bringing me to. There's like this whole thing that you've built that people love, and they're excited and crazy about it. And so he was able to see me in that energy, and it like grew some mutual respect for me and how he showed up as a volunteer, and him and like seeing me do what I do. He got to see me lead like one of the opening exercises. This year he got to see me do a keynote, and he's able to see that. He's also my toughest critic. Yeah. So if I get off stage and I'm like, how do you think it go? You go, it was okay. Yeah. I'm like, all right, I guess that's the standard then.
Yeah. Well, like you said, he's a very stoic kid, so that you can't expect much more.
He gives me the truth.
He gives you the truth.
He's not like, oh, you did great, Dad. Yeah. He's like, you were pretty good, but you could do better. And I'm like, you're right. I could do better.
So talk to me a little bit about the keynotes, because like that's something you spent a lot of time, a lot of energy on, because you have a message that you want to share with the world that has impacted the stages that I've seen you on already. What is the keynote about, and why should people want you on that stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one is to have people understand that whatever leadership skill they may have that they're using in business, there's a way to tap that and bring it home in a way that will really create more connection and more understanding and just more love in the family. And so that's really been my goal in the keynote, is to help entrepreneurs realize that what is enough for you, and then to understand that the chances of whatever you're building making it to the third generation is almost zero. It's like 10% of wealth that's built makes it transferred to the third generation. It's oftentimes lost in the second generation. If not, then the third generation loses it. And that's a pretty big thing to think about for an entrepreneur who's doing all of this for the family and for legacy. And when they run the stats on the reasons, and they survey these families that have lost it or kept it, it's oftentimes like family constitution, family values, family meetings, that are the things that the families that make it into the fourth, fifth, sixth generation and beyond, like they're focused in on that stuff. And so what I did is I took, we wrote with Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families. We did a lot of the Fambundance. Over 3 or 4 years, we led probably hundreds of family events. And we, after sitting with that for the last 3 years, I'm like, there's a model in here somewhere for how you build the culture of a team or any organization. And so I was able to take what we'd already done in our previous work and combine it into a model where there's 3 simple parts to building a thriving culture in a family. It's knowing your values, knowing your visions, and then knowing what rhythms or traditions we do in our family that make us uniquely us. And then beyond that, it's how do I get that into a family constitution, which creates the identity. And then there's one other piece to this, which I'm still working on the ways to deliver this to our Fambundance community, is how do we then also write a legacy letter, which would then be like the 3-peat of your hard estate planning, your family constitution, and then the legacy letter basically informs whoever the trustees are of like what your real wishes were with what you're leaving, and what you how you really want them to think through decisions that they're making on your behalf in the future. And so it's really inspiring people to realize like this is the work of being the most whole version of yourself and your family that you can be. Like we strive for health and go abundance, but there's also how healthy is the connection and the love inside of your family. And it comes down to just building the culture in a way that you would your team. And oftentimes we do all these structures, goal setting, values, and all these things for the different teams we're on. And then we come home and it's like leadership by default. So at what point do we decide like the place I should be most purposeful with my leadership is probably first with myself. If I lead myself really well, then I can probably lead my family well. And if I can lead my family well, then I've earned the right to probably go out in the world and lead a business. And I think some people just have that backwards. They're like, "Oh, I can lead this business. I'm doing everything I can here." And then they're just like, if there's another spouse or who's at home or even at work, they're like, "Well, you lead it." And it just becomes something where there's not really a purposeful plan around family culture. So I think inspiring people to really lean into their families also is really, in my opinion, the only way we fix this broken world that we're a part of right now. Like it starts in the family, how someone's raised, how good they feel about themselves, how hard they decide they're going to work or not. Like all of that's going to be born in the family. It's not going to be taught in the schools. They might catch on their own or whatever, but that's not, I'm not going to bet on that. So I think we have to have a way to really, draw a line in the sand and say, this is where I'm going to lead and really thrive. And also then you have the support of everyone, you feel fulfilled, and now you're the most capable entrepreneur that you can be. But I think you have to have that foundation of family set. And the truth is that I think many entrepreneurs, and especially it's changing now. I think we're on the cusp of it. I think they're the most resourceful and powerful, influential leaders in their community. So if they're not leading their families, then we're just leaving this like vacuum of
Right.
leadership that doesn't get passed down. And so it's like, if you're a great leader and you have a great business, please bring that to your home and lead your family with intention, because they need it, you need it, and the world needs it.
I love what you say about like being a leader at home. And I think my story is part of leadership is recognizing where you're off or where you could improve.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to this question of where in your life are you most flirting with disaster right now?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I would probably say, for me, like I really have to monitor like whether or not I'm drinking alcohol or not. I think it can be a challenge for me. I think a lot of the trauma that I had, like I learned how to, I mean, I've never been an alcoholic or drinking during the day or whatever, but there's a time in my life where, and especially owning a brewery, where like the everyday answer to the end of the day and winding down is to have a drink or to celebrate. And we're marketed to that alcohol is like this amazing thing that we should all have all the time. And whether it's you're having your worst day or your best day,
Mm-hmm.
the answer is alcohol or some other substance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with the cannabis laws and everything changing, it's like, oh, well, this is a medicine, it's natural.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no matter what, if I allow myself to cover up the emotions of like, well, let me process the day, let me actually see how I feel and sit about it and journal, versus like I'm just gonna drink, then that's for me an area where I just really have to be aware and like take long breaks, don't drink at all, like set clear boundaries. My wife and I will do that together so that it's not, just one of us. And I think that's the area like I really have to pay the most attention to, because there is some addiction in the family. There's a tendency towards that kind of behavior, not serving. And so, yeah, really monitoring that and being cautious.
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to is a lot of people use substances, let's just generalize them as escapes, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to look at this problem in the eye. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Let me go mask it with whatever I choose, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, that addiction is running. Like for
Yeah.
some people, that addiction is working out. For some people, it's different substances. But what it sounds like to me is you're saying like you're standing and feeling more rather than running from or waiting to feel. Like you're
Yeah.
sitting in those emotions and journaling on it.
Yeah, and learning how to self-soothe. So, if it wasn't a substance, it could be a person too.
Yeah.
Like I'm counting on you to fix my feelings all the time. So we've just got to learn how do we self-soothe and then like make it okay. Like I think we maybe feel like we're not supposed to feel pain in life. And I think the exact opposite is true. Like oftentimes it's the pain that we feel in life that makes the sweetness taste that much better when we actually do have a positive, joyful moment that we can celebrate. It's like without the downside, there is no upside.
Right. Right. Without the rain, there is no sunshine.
Yeah.
So you've read a lot of books, studied a lot of people, listened to a lot of speakers. Who would you say has had the biggest impact on you and your life and how you show up on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, I would say like my dad's one of them, but also my dad introduced me to David Osborne. And I would say that if there's been a force in my life that has been sort of a guiding light or a North Star for me, it's been David. And the thing that's great about David is he has not stopped growing since I've known him. And so it's not often you get to find a mentor that if you work hard enough, you might pass eventually. There's not been any passing him yet. We'll see what the future holds. He's getting kind of old now.
Yeah.
But he's just been somebody who's willing to tell me the truth. When others maybe didn't, because he cares enough to have that uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
And so while I'm always inspired by his messages and the fact that whatever he says on stage is actually how he lives his life, but like, he's showed me so much about business and also just so much about how to be a better human being. And it has never been comfortable, but it's always been worth it. And so, leaning into him as now, he's like an older brother to me. And obviously we're business partners, we're neighbors, our kids are best friends. They spend a ton of time together. So it's just a beautiful thing. Like, and then even his wife, Tracy, and my wife and all of us, like, we travel together, we have fun together, and it's a beautiful thing. So I think like mentors like David, and then obviously Pat and Tim have become mentors by default through David as well. But like, it'd be hard to argue with that not being the biggest influence in my life.
Well, what's really cool about that from my perspective is you have gotten comfortable with being told what you need to hear and not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but like society has this notion of discomfort is bad, pain is bad, run. And what you're saying is leaning into the pain, leaning into the discomfort is where all the gold has been for you in your life.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I can even think back to just 3-4 years ago. I still was really having a hard time with any kind of criticism, and there was some point in there too where David realized how hard I was on myself.
Yeah.
And he for a while, he just stopped being hard on me, and he gave me that space to really grow into. But yeah, it can be an uncomfortable thing to be in that space where you're beating yourself up to go and perform. And so having somebody who's acknowledging how much you can take too.
Yeah.
And then as I've done more healing and inner work, it's amazing how much more I can take that.
Yeah.
Right. So like I'm so much more equipped to lean into whatever feedback I'm getting. Whereas before I almost just didn't want the feedback because I thought like it's going to reveal some weakness or that I'm not enough and show me that I shouldn't be proud of myself. In fact, the opposite is true. If I find out what it is and I work on it, now I will feel proud of myself.
Yeah, and I think, what we're saying is not necessarily that all criticism is good, right? Like from my perspective, there's two types of critic. There's the critic who is jealous and is trying to pull you down, and there's the critic who is critical and is trying to pull you up.
Yeah.
And I heard recently this quote that said, never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. And so it's very important from my perspective to understand those two differences and understand like there are going to be haters in life. There are going to be people that knock you down. There's probably going to be people in this video that say you guys suck and this was a terrible interview. But those aren't the kind of people that you're willing to listen to.
Right.
You're willing to listen to the people that are also willing to give you the advice that you would take and apply in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, look, man, it's been an honor for people that want to find more about Mike McCarthy, family values, family constitutions, what you and Lindsay are doing from a core value perspective. How can people find you?
Probably the best way is Instagram. Go Mike McCarthy is the handle. And yeah, or we're just relaunching the Gobundance website as well. So you could check that out or check out a copy of the Miracle Morning for Parents and Families or the accompanying workbook. It's a playbook of 8 exercises you can bring home and actually start leading in your house right away.
And people can get that on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon for those both.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you.